not so excited when I heard a government spokesman say, well, really our long-term objective remains net zero by 2050. And so I think really what the Ukrainian crisis has done is underlined the fact that we are going to be continually dependent on natural gas for heating and power. And that the gas has an important transitional role to play over the next 20 years. And what we should be doing in this review is identifying what can be done in a relatively short space of time to rectify the imbalance in generation and insecurity of supply.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, of course. In all of the statements we've seen over the course of the last week, there have been, constant references to we're sticking to the net zero plan. And maybe the use of this term, energy independence, is to sort of, quieten down those on the backbenches that are getting angry, elements of the national press that are getting angry. But you make the point in your paper that natural gas will have a continuing and critical role to play in the energy mix. What about nuclear? Because we have heard some different words on nuclear. And it was interesting, I thought, that exchange that we had last week in the Commons when Johnson said we're for nuclear and the opposition said we're for nuclear. Isn't the problem with that even if we say, right, let's reinvest in nuclear, it's 5, 6, 7, 8 years before any of that comes online?
Well, Treasury have always had second thoughts about big nuclear, and which is the reason why we haven't had any more plants after Hinkley. And in fact, why Hinkley was even under the microscope a few years back as to whether or not it should continue.
Yeah.
I think the problem with nuclear, the big nuclear, and I'm talking 2 gigawatt level of nuclear plants, is they take a long time to build, they're incredibly expensive. And either you open up a 30-year subsidy for electricity price, which is consumers have to bear, or you end up having to contribute significantly to what could be a capital cost, which nobody's quite clear how big it would be. And I think there is, if you
seem
extremely expensive if you take into account the extension.
And yet,
on
Clive,
smaller nuclear, I mean, there has been talk. Sorry, Nigel.
Yeah, I say, the French have gone for nuclear, haven't they, in a very, very big way, and they're reinvesting in nuclear. And it does at least, and whatever the costs and the risks, it does at least give them guaranteed electricity supply, so much so they export much of the excess, or some of the excess, to the UK.
Yes, it does. I mean, it is essentially, I can't argue the fact that it doesn't produce any carbon dioxide, but what they do take an incredibly long time to build. They're never normally not built on time or to budget. And I think experts, not only myself, have said maybe the time has come for us to say, okay, Hinkley will have, but no more after Hinkley. The other question that's been raised by government is the issue of smaller nuclear reactors, 300 megawatt, having lots of them. The problem with that is that we don't have the manufacturing base or the supply chain robustness to produce, to economies of scale, that number of modular reactors. If we had a huge export market willingly to buy our modular reactors, then Rolls-Royce could look forward to being able to produce these modular reactors. By the way, the technology is not proven yet, despite what they say. But without that, we're still going to cost the same amount in subsidy, I would envisage, than the larger ones in terms of cost per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, and a final thought from you, if I can, Clive. Do you think it's right for the British Prime Minister to be there in Saudi Arabia, effectively begging them to up production and sell some of it to us?
Well, I suppose in some ways it's the obvious reaction every time we've had a situation where the oil price has escalated to this level. There has always been a case of why don't we put OPEC under the pressure and try and make them increase production. I can't recollect exactly how successful we've been with that, even at the time of the 70s oil crisis. And so I think it's optimistic, to say the least, that will happen.